Hi, and you're very welcome to episode 19 of season 2 of the WNL podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. And joining me, Breifne and Aaron, once again is Aaron Clark of the WNL show. Aaron, how have you been for the last couple of days?
Been good. Been nice to get out and watch some football during the week as well. Catch up on a lot of football, watching a bit of the Euros. Enjoying seeing the women's football in the spotlight for the right reasons.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen a minute of the Euros. I know, shoot me, put me down. I haven't seen a minute of the Euros because I've just been snowed under with just work stuff over the last couple of weeks. But you know what I've really enjoyed is people who I know 2 or 3 weeks ago would never have sat down and watched a women's soccer show or a match, watching these gay girls playing and talking about it. And I better, she'll kill me, but my mother the other morning, I called in, they were having their breakfast. I called in on the way to work, and she just waxed lyrical about these players. She's never been to a football match in her life if she can avoid it. And here she was talking about the people who are doing the commentary, the people who are playing the game. And she was like, going, they're not half bad. They're pretty good. I enjoyed watching it. And seeing that kind of greater community people who wouldn't necessarily have been involved in the women's football world kind of embracing the idea that, you know what, actually, girls can play a bit of football. That, for me, has been a highlight, even if I haven't been following it too closely myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you even see in reflection just at home ourselves with the Ireland-Finland tickets going on sale the other day. And like I know I put stuff out the days before, basically telling people the pre-sale links is here, go buy your tickets now, because on the day they won't last long, and they didn't. And it's a positive vibe. Tala's completely sold out. Like, that sort of thing. It just shows that the buzz is there. Like, you look at what's happening. It's happening across the water. Yes, there's a little bit of resentment. Maybe we're not there, but it's been truly enjoyable to watch and to see it going on. And I'm looking forward to going to the final myself and getting over there just to see the buzz again. I know you don't like when I say that.
I'm just jealous. That's all. I'm just jealous.
But like, it's great, and I'm seeing people on social media as well who would never talk about women's football, and they're talking about things that happen, and it can only be positive. But hopefully, they all then spin off and get behind the Irish team or get behind the National League, and especially with all the positive news we've had this week.
Well, let's get into maybe some talk about that positive news. First of all, because today we're recording this Friday night, going out Saturday morning this week. We had some pretty big news. A bit of a mixed bag, maybe. A lot of positives out of it. 1 or 2 question marks, maybe, rather than negatives. But talk to us, maybe. You broke the story to me a couple of hours maybe before Shells tweeted it last night. But we have a new arrival in the league. Finally, somebody coming into the league from outside rather than an exodus out.
Yeah, what a name to come in as well, Breifne. That's the biggest thing is Heather O'Reilly. She's played 231 times for America, won the Olympics 3 times, won the World Cup. She's done everything in the women's game, and for her to come into Shelbourne, yes, she's at the tail end of her career. She's retired for a couple of years, but she's coming out of retirement. I still think she'll add a lot to the league, and I think you just look at her presence. You had a RTE, Virgin Media, and all down at Talca Park today. You wouldn't see Virgin Media normally around the National League, and that sort of presence just shows you how much of a big name it is.
We've lost Aaron there again, unfortunately. We seem to be having technical issues with Aaron over the last couple of weeks. But of course, he was talking about, I give him a chance to come back in there, but he was talking about Heather O'Reilly's arrival into the league, and he joins us back again. Aaron.
Yeah, look, if she can get bums on seats with her presence, Breifne, you look at Bleacher reports, all the American outlets, they're all over it. Everyone has been all over on social media, and I think it's a massive story, because you're right. We normally talk about players leaving, and as we speak about when we talk about one of the sides who playing this weekend, 2 of their players going back to America after being home for the summer, and we're normally talking about departures, but it's a great sign. It's a great addition, and I think she'll definitely add a lot. She'll definitely add a lot to the league in terms of her presence. Your question would be, is at 37 coming out of retirement, what has she got left? But that remains to be seen, and she could make her debut live on TG Carr as well, which is massive for TG Carr coming back in. They couldn't have timed it any more better.
Oh, it really was fantastic news for them, I suppose, really, in terms of the eyeballs that are going to be on them this week. My only thing is, I want to see if Alex Morgan and co are going to be watching TG Carr, can understand the Irish. That's going to be the fun part of that particular episode over the weekend. But maybe let's talk about the games last weekend before we look ahead to this week. And we had 6 games last weekend. One, of course, midweek. Shells and Bows took to the field in Talca Park on Wednesday night. Bit of a drab affair. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But first of all, for you over last weekend, any particular highlights in those games? We'll run the results under the thing here. But Shells and Athlone probably for me.
I think Athlone performance against Shelbourne for me was probably the standout performance of the weekend. They were brilliant. We had Miriam Devaney on the show last week, and Tommie Hewitt was absolutely devastated to lose her in the warm up. Such a big player for them, and didn't reflect on it. Emily Corbett scores again, 16th goal of the season. Scores with her left foot one week, scores with her right foot the next. That just shows, it shows the caliber. A dink over the head of Amanda Budden. Probably could have done a bit better to prevent the goal just with her positioning. But when that happens, and then they've chances to go further ahead. Shells had a good chance when Noelle Murray hit both posts and just didn't go in, and then Shells get that bit of luck in injury time when it's Jessica Hennessy's hand. I was down the other end. I had a lot of bodies in the way, but a lot of people I speak to say yes, it was a penalty, and you could see how distraught Hennessy was after the game that he should have given that away, because it would have been a massive result. It's the first time that Athlone have taken a point off Bohemians this midweek. That's the first time they've done it as well, and I think these little check boxes are just being done by the likes of Athlone this year. Points off teams here, points off there that they've never done before. They're only one now they're chasing as a result against Wexford. They come close so many times, but they didn't. And in terms of Shells, I thought Shells were quite poor on Saturday. They couldn't get any sort of rhythm going. Noel King sprung the bed. A lot of the youngsters on. He lost Kiva Keenan at half time. She looked to be struggling with a knock she took early in the game, and she come out on Wednesday evening with a massive strapping on, and she was a big Lana Fox come off injured as well, and it just looked as though things were potentially going to unravel for Shelbourne. But that little bit of luck at the end, and Noelle Murray was never going to make a mistake with the penalty.
In terms of, I suppose, Shelbourne's performance in particular over the last 2 games, over the last 7 days, we've talked about how Shells had the league title wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. I think everybody kind of said it's theirs to lose. Even Myrne, when she was on the show last week, kind of from a Athlone point of view, said it's theirs to lose. They went to Talca. They took a point. Bows took a point. That's 4 points dropped for Shells in the last 2 home games. They haven't won at home in 4. I know we were talking before the game or before the show tonight. Is there a chance that we could see a similar situation to last year, where the team who are so far out ahead just start getting a little bit cagey or maybe a little bit overconfident and just start dropping points? The doubts that creeps in. Or is the arrival of Heather O'Reilly going to make that bit of a difference to them in terms of quality and experience in the restaurant?
It's funny that we're talking about Heather O'Reilly's we haven't even mentioned the fact that Emma Starr signed as well from Galway and come on as a sub, and then they brought in another player from America, Izzy Glennon, and I think that's where you sort of tried to introduce that. But my only concern for Noel is if he gets a bunch of injuries, how's the squad going to handle that? The biggest question mark over the Heather O'Reilly thing is, can she stay fit after so long out of the game? And if she can, she'll definitely add an awful lot to them. But I think for the younger players, it's definitely been a bit of a baptism of fire for some of the younger players this week, that they've had to come in. Like you look, Kelly come on early in the game against Athlone and sort of got booked, and you could see she was a little bit hesitant picking up an early yellow right after coming on. And then he brought on the likes of Leo Lee, but they didn't make the impact that he maybe would have hoped. The problem there is that he sort of had to bring them on because he hadn't really got anybody else to bring on. And I'm sure if you asked Noel probably would have liked to introduce them, to get them minutes in a situation that was probably more suitable, not when they're chasing games. So it's tough, because if they do get injuries, they could be in trouble. But if they stay fit, you'd have to say they're still firm favourites. And I think the biggest thing from an Athlone point, I know they lost second place, but they see they've no fear in going up and playing these sort of teams, going up to the Peamount, going up to Shelbourne. They've pushed that Wexford all the way, so they'll pick up big points in the second half of the season. But the most important question is, it's not a case of will Shells drop points, because we know they will. It's a case of the other teams around them. Can they not drop as many? And in the first half of the season, that was the biggest problem. It was the other teams were dropping silly points where maybe seasons gone by they wouldn't have dropped them points.
When talking about the chasing pack, Athlone, of course, in that result themselves, 1-1 with Shells. Treaty United, the venue for Peamount's game last weekend, 7-0 winners, fairly comfortable in the end for the Peas. Wexford 3-1 winners over Bohemians. Is that a statement of intent to say this isn't over yet? We're going to keep that pressure on. We're going to make you win this title.
Do you know what, the Wexford one for me is a bit of a. From a Paul's point of view, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for them, because they probably should have been 2 or 3 up in the first 10 minutes. Paul should have. They had ample chances. They were in behind so many times. Even Ronan McCarthy on commentary was saying that they have to take these chances, and they didn't. And then when Wexford go ahead through Della Doherty, when Rachel Kelly just can't, she tries to pan the ball out with the bar, just doesn't get a good hand on it. Della Doherty slots on close range. They respond straight away with Lisa Murphy with a header, but then it's just defensive frailties. They don't prevent the cross. Then Lisa Murphy heads the ball straight across her own goal, and Katie Burtis slices the clearance, falls to Ellen on the edge of the box. And we've been saying for a long time, if you give Ellen space, she's just going to bury it. And then moments later, she literally got in again and beat the last defender and put it into the corner. And Wexford, to be honest, they'll probably say it was 3-1 doesn't reflect the scoreline of what the actual game was, but they got out of there, and that just showed that their mentality. And I think in terms of Peamount, it was a bit of a routing for them in Treaty, and they'll just be looking to try pick up a bit of momentum. They're on the back foot. And I think the one thing you've heard James saying a couple of times to them in post-match team talks is let the shackles go. They need to let the shackles go. Otherwise, they seem to be playing with a lot of fear. I know Anya O'Gorman's missed the last couple of games for them. They'll be hoping to have her back soon. And then you look at, for them, I think Peamount, it's more of a case of can they put in a good performance this weekend to build up to the FAI Cup game against Shelbourne next weekend, because I think for them the league is probably a bit too far.
Yeah, I think so. Anya probably be back relatively soon. I know why she was missing the games. Couldn't really talk about it until she announced it herself, but she did announce on social media during the week about a new arrival in her household. So congratulations to her and her partner on the arrival of their baby boy. Great times for the family, and welcome to the WNL family for I think it's young James Gorman, who will be in. I'm sure he'll be around PRO Park for the next any amount of years, as Anya still continues to knock the goals in for Peamount. 2 other games, of course, over the weekend. DLR had a good win down in Cork, and then the battle in the West. Galway United 5, Sligo 2. Sligo led twice early in the game. From those 2, of course, 2 have been really, really impressive up front, getting the goals for Sligo. A little bit maybe over-reliant on them at times. Emma Doherty and Gemma McGuinness in the reverse order. Gemma opened the score and Emma put them 2-1 up a few minutes later. But then I think just the experience of Galway just got to them in the end, and they ran out 5-2 winners. Fairly comfortable in the end, I would have thought. Aaron.
If you're Stephen Feeney, you'd be extremely disappointed leading twice and losing the game like that. That you're right. It just shows a bit of experience, and Galway just they have some decent players, and they showed that at the weekend. Some good goals as well. But in terms of Sligo, I think Sligo have done a good bit of business bringing in Amy Boyle-Carr. I thought it was a great signing. I think she'll make a massive difference. Hasn't played National League senior level before because she dispelled with Sion Swifts, and
she has played in the Northern League.
I think she'll make a great difference. I remember watching her playing against Holland when she made her Ireland debut at 16 and sort of disappeared off the scene, went to play ladies football for Donegal. But I think great to have her back in the league. If she can add an awful lot to Sligo, it would be good experience, good addition to them. And I think it's what they need. There's been talk that there may be 1 or 2 more that may come in. And I think overall for Sligo, it's been a decent enough season. They'd have to be definitely happy, but shipping 5 and you lead twice, that'll be just disappointing for them. And in terms of the DL always look comfortable. A penalty to open the scoring, and they never looked like they're gonna lose that game. That was Lauren Egbelunu's and Maria O'Sullivan's last game before they head back to America. So 2 big losses for Danny Murphy. He's trying to build something there, and then the players are going. He talked to us earlier in the season about wanting to keep him, and then he couldn't. So I think from a Cork point of view, they had 2 big losses, and it's becoming difficult for Danny. He's not seeming to pick up the results that he maybe would have liked after the break. And this weekend they have another tough fixture on the road, and it's hard to see where the win is going to come at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams in the league maybe praying for the end of the season just to come as quickly as it possibly can to give them that opportunity to maybe go out and talk to people and recruit and maybe see what is possible through the off season. We've seen some impressive moves, as you mentioned, from Shells over the last few weeks. Before we move on to a quick chat with Tommie Hewitt that you had after the game at the weekend, just want to finish up on the Heather O'Reilly thing. And I suppose, let's be honest about it. There's an interview in one of the pieces about how she played in a charity game a couple of weeks ago at Arsenal, and just a conversation with Arsene Wenger, and she's like, "I've never played in the Champions League," and he said, "Do it while you still can," and she joins the Irish champions, and you kind of wondering maybe is she really just here to tick that personal box in her life that she won't regret having not played it? Does she have the legs? And I think she does, but I'm just asking the question: does she still have the legs, or even the interest, or the hunger to go out now at 37 years of age and do it for a club where she has really no affiliation? And I suppose then the other question, and maybe what I'm really trying to get at, is why Shells? Of all the teams in the league, why has she decided to come and play for Shells? What's the motivation?
Yeah. So in terms of the Soccer 8 game that she played in, when the news started to filter, I text somebody, a good friend of mine in the UK, and someone who would trust their opinion when it comes to football. And what he texted me back straight away was she was unbelievable that day. She looked like she'd never been away from the game. And when that was said to me, I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I just think your motivation, that is an interesting one. She brought the family over as well from America, so it's not like it's just Heather O'Reilly coming over to play some games and go. She's brought the family over. I know, seeing some pieces, she sort of talked about growing up in Ireland, spending time in Ireland when she was younger. So it'll be interesting to see, is she going to go and explore things in the country? Maybe that could be our motivation, to bring the kids while they're young to go and see the country and see what it's about. But I think it can only be a game for Shelbourne. You'd like to know a little bit more of the ins and outs as to what's going on and how it come about and how. But until we probably speak to her, we probably won't find out that why Shelbourne and why Ireland, why Dublin.
Yeah, we did speak to Shells today, of course, ahead of the show, and we have been told that we will do our best to have her on the podcast next week and have a bit of a chat with her. Maybe find out exactly why Ireland, what the appeal is. Obviously, we do have a certain appeal. We're well known around the country for being welcoming, and maybe, as you say, she just wanted to get that look at the country and just get a bit of a tourist visa in while she's able to still kick a ball around. Anyway, moving on to the managers after that game. You caught up with Tommie Hewitt after the game. Do you want to intro this piece?
Yeah, Tommie was quite upset at the start, coming in to speak, but you could see his passion and his raw emotion. I think if you look at where they are in the league table, you can see even the result against Shelbourne, like, he wasn't happy taking a point away, and you can see the determination that they have going forward to hopefully win more games as the season goes on.
Here we go.
Time back long boss, Tommie Hewitt. Tommie, a point against the champions. I'm sure if I offered you that before the game, you'd have taken it, but what an effort from your side.
Yeah, look, we were very confident coming up here, Aaron. I suppose we've been fantastic this season so far. I still know our place at the dinner table. They're champions. That's what champions do. They claw back the result. If you offered me a draw at the start, no, I wouldn't have taken it, Aaron. We came here to win. And I think everybody's seen that. We came here to win. We don't know any other way. Fairness to Shelbourne, because of a lot of problems, they bombarded us a few corners and that kind of stuff. We dealt very well, and Emily Corbett scored a great goal, and thought we were going to see it out. But as we've seen over the last couple of months, Shelbourne always do that. They always get that late goal, and look, that's a sign of a champions as well. And in fairness to them, best of luck to them. But it's a bit raw at the moment, Aaron.
Going in at the break, though, you're probably disappointed to go in level because your chances, and I know they had the one chance from Noel, but you'd push them and you'd create some good opportunities. You just couldn't find the target.
Yeah, exactly. And we spoke about that because in Sligo last week, with 25 attempts and we'd only 5 on target, and our goal was coming up here to, I suppose, get more shots on target. And yeah, at half time, you're looking at it and saying, I thought we were a better team at half time. I thought we were the better team for the majority of the game. And I was disappointed. No, we just reset and we go again. As I said, we nearly nicked it in the end, Aaron.
Emily Corbett, I think that's a 16th league goal of the season. It's nearly more goals than you'd scored nearly in the entire last season. She's just on fire, but I think it's a full team effort rather than just an individual.
Yeah, I said it to girls. We've no superstars. We've everybody. Emily, in fairness to her, she could get a small bit carried away with all the attention she's getting. But in fairness to her, she stays grounded, and you seen the finish there, an absolute sublime finish. She can do that. She has that in her locker. But it's look, the team have been terrific, Aaron. I can't ask for any more of this team. You know, we're kind of squeezing it, and we're getting every ounce of energy and effort out of them. And look, big shout out has to go to young Scarlett Hearn there, who came in from Plymouth there a couple of months ago. She's 17, 18 years of age. She's been absolutely superb since she's come in, and yeah, look, team effort.
I know it's a couple of weeks away, but I think you're getting your just rewards with the fact that you're even getting a game live on television on TG Carr down in Athlone Town Stadium. Just shows how much things have come on.
Look, it's fantastic, TG Carr covering the league, and it's, you know, I honestly, I mean this, and I say this to the utmost respect to people. A lot of people have given us no respect for what we've done, and you don't come into this game looking for pats on the back, but TG Carr, I suppose, they had to give us that game because where we are in the table, and that's all credit to the girls. And you know, a lot of media outlets that you look at and you watch and you listen to, even against Whitehall, nobody gave us a chance against Whitehall. They said that it was going to be the biggest upset. Again, that gives us motivation, it fuels the fire. I think you were one of them as well, Aaron.
I said if
the banana skin. But look, listen, I was nervous going into that, absolutely nervous going into that, and you always are against a non-league team. But yeah, it's great for the girls, it's great for the club. And it shows girls now that don't have to come to the likes of Shelbourne, they don't have to go to the likes of Wexford, that we're building something here in Athlone.
I think that's a massive positive, and as well if you look at the college side doing very well as well this year in the Midlands as well, because like we were talking I had Marion Vanya on the podcast during the week, and she sort of said, you know, she's coming from Leitrim to you guys, Niamh Coombs is coming from Dublin to you guys. It's not a case that they all have to go to these big clubs now, and I think does today sort of set a marker to where you can go for the rest of the season?
Look, I'm talking to Noel before. I'm one game at a time, and I don't actually look beyond the next game. Our next game is the LR at home next week. Very, very good side, and we'll just take it from there. Listen, my aim at the start of the season and all the girls was hopefully to finish in the top 5. We were 7th last year, joint with Bowes in 6th. An improvement will be finishing in the top 5, and I think that's, you know, we're capable of doing that. But you never know in this league. A lot of teams are strengthened. A lot of teams are going to take points off each other, and we'll just see how it pans out. We hope to get 1 or 2 players in over the next week to try and help them girls that are doing a great job, Aaron.
Brilliant, Tommy. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Of course, that Tommie Hewitt there, you spoke to him over the game last weekend, and he gave you a fair dressing down yourself, Aaron, for writing him off.
Listen, I don't mind that, but the biggest thing it shows us is that, you know, they're listening to it, they're watching and seeing the things that are being said, and he's right in what he says in terms of about players and stuff like that, because I think that's important that players, as we spoke about, don't have to go to the big clubs all the time, because I think it sort of dilutes the league when everybody's just looking to go to Shelbourne and Petermount only. But it's funny that he says about wanting the top 5 finish. Like, they're only 3 points behind. Galway are only 3 points behind them, and we wouldn't have thought that how close it even is up between 2nd to 5th. And even if you look at the LR Waves, are a further 4 points behind Galway, and it's really whoever's going to take that by the scruff of the neck will go and get second place.
Yeah, of course. We're looking forward to the weekend. That might have a big bearing on who will finish up in second place this season. The first game, I suppose we might as well talk about, is the one that's live on TG Carr. Big announcement last week. They went to Sligo. They had half of Sligo in the photo shoot. I think they had 9 of the 10 girls there, and 5 of them were Sligo or from that general gene pool. I think 4 Sligo, 1 Leitrim potentially. Roisin Malloy from Athlone is from Sligo. Yvonne Hennigan from Bowes is from Sligo. Peamount's Dervla Byrne was there. She's Leitrim, just down the road. And of course, then you had Emma Hansbury from Sligo. And there was somebody else whose name escapes me now. Oh, the 5th one I was accredited to Sligo. She won't accept this, but given her brother's exploits over the last couple of weeks with Julianne Russell, of course, with a tenuous Sligo relationship, but I think she'll take it, given that she very passionate about anything we say about John. She shares on her social media, so we know she watches the show. She follows the men's national league as well through that association. But
what do you think? What do you think of? I know. The Three Amigos podcast had a good chat about it this week. Cork not being represented, the club saying they forgot to send somebody.
I think it's poor. I think it's very, very poor.
Like, they were paid expenses.
Irrelevant. To my point, the expenses thing, I didn't know that, but it makes it even worse. I think there should have been somebody there. You could have flown somebody up if you had to, nearly. Arrangements could have been made. I think the clubs need to take themselves as professionally as they expect to be treated by the people around them. And if you are taking sponsorship money from big companies, or expect them to take sponsorship money, if you're expecting people to invest their time, their money, their attention into your games, into season tickets, buying jerseys, reading programs, watching and engaging with content like this, then you have to portray yourself professionally as well. I don't think it's acceptable if that's the excuse that they forgot to send somebody. That's pretty poor form. Now, I don't like hammering teams, but that's the basics. We see it. We do a lot of stuff locally here at County Leitrim with Gaelic games, and every now and again you'll get a team that just don't bother or forget or whatever the situation might be, and it's just poor. You don't forget launches like that. You can't. You wouldn't see it in other sports. We should be aspiring to be better or as professional as we can be on that.
Like, I think they produced a brilliant little campaign video, TG Carr, off the back of it, and it sort of gave me a little bit of spine tingling to say this is what they're going to do. And the fact that they've shown 10 live games as well, it's a massive increase on what they done last year. And like, I think it deserves the respect and the recognition for the effort that they're putting in.
100%, and that's what my point is. If you're expecting professional agencies and professional companies like TG Carr to come in and promote the league, then you have to meet them halfway, or even at 10% of the way. But you have to meet them. You can't just forget to show up. Anyway, that one rant less this week. I'm going to try and keep it short. For me, we mentioned the Sligo success this year, both in the men's side in Europe, and things seem to be going from strength to strength within the club over the last few years, which as a local is fantastic to see. And I think we see the women's side as a huge part of that. It's a fantastic addition to the club. And I think when you bring everything together and everything's going in the right direction, it's so much easier to create an environment where results like, as we're talking, last night against Motherwell, a 2-0 home win based on a 1-0 home win in the first leg, and you're seeing teams progressing. There was €1 million came into the league last night. €1 million. And we talk about how we scrimp and save for bits and pieces. Both those teams, St. Pat's and Sligo Rovers, went from €300,000 prize money each to €800,000 prize money each. And you know what? I wouldn't rule out one of them getting through the next round. I don't know which one. I think if I was John Russell, I'd rather be seeing the North Macedonians rather than the was it Sparta Prague? The Norwegians. It just would have been. I'd rather have taken them than anybody else, but it's going to be an uphill battle. I can't see them getting through. I do have a bit of a gripe with John Russell, though, and I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I'm going to bring it back to women's football. And I've asked you a question off air. I think John Russell is now the most successful Irish club manager in UEFA club competitions with an Irish club. And I had a huge joy this morning in texting him and congratulating him on that, because he took my record. And I'm absolutely gutted. With St. Francis back in the day, 2 wins out of 3, 66%. John now has 75%. So I'll happily concede my record, at least temporarily. John, we'll have another chat next week, but I think I'm buying lunch the next time we sit down for a chat. Anyway, that's my little humble brag out of the way. Let's talk about the games next week. Let's start with that game. Sligo Rovers versus Shells. It could be Heather O'Reilly's debut. It's definitely Sligo's debut on TG Carr in the sense of the Women's National League. How do you see the game going? We could be looking at one of two very different things here. So
there's a couple of things to look at in terms of this. So in terms of the actual game itself, Noel's definitely going to want a response from Shelbourne off the back of two draws in a row. If he gets it, it could be a dangerous game, a dangerous night for Sligo Rovers. But if they're not on par again, if Sligo can stay in the game for 60 minutes, they may have a chance. But will he spring Emma Starr from the start, or will he bring her off the bench? Will he spring Heather O'Reilly? But just in terms of Sligo, it's great that it's their first game. They're the first up on TG Carr. It's a Saturday night evening, roughly around the time where the men would normally play. Hopefully they'll get a big crowd. I think the fact that there's potential that it could be Heather O'Reilly's debut, that might add to the people just wanting to come out just to see it. And we may see a Women's National League attendance record tomorrow, but I think from a Sligo point of view, have to be tight at the back early on, keep things tight. If they concede one early, Shelbourne could score a couple and have an easy enough night.
I'd love to have seen Sligo sell the tickets inside the gate of the women's game. Make them come in, make them stay for the women's game, and and for the tickets for the European match. And I would think it would have been really a massive boost for that game. Great crowd on TV. You could have got maybe an extra 1,000 people, which would be on its own almost a WNL attendance record.
1,000 and I think it's 1,097, is it?
I thought it was 1,007, but I'm open to correction on that. But it's just over 1,000 anyway. A little over 1,000, you'd beat it. But it's going to be a big thing. I really hope for Sligo's point of view, and I know they've impressed me this year. I would have been very skeptical about their chances. I said it on the show at the time. I repeat it now. I didn't think they'd get into double figures. They're nearly double that. So, and I think they will comfortably hit 20, 25 points before the season is out. They've been phenomenal, and I really, really hope they're here to stay. And I think you mentioned Amy Boyle-Carr signing during the week. She's the kind of player they need to be bringing in. And I think that if I'm Stephen Feeney or whoever's involved in running the club at the moment, Con Feely's the CEO up there, I'd nearly be looking at players around the league who would have an affinity to the area. And that's who I'd be targeting as well. There's enough of them out there that if you got a chunk of them to come back, and other managers are not going to like me saying this, but if you got a chunk of them to come back, you could make Sligo into that kind of lower third team into maybe a competitive third or fourth place side within a year or two, which will be a huge addition to the league. Moving further south.
Just before you do real quickly, is Amy Boyle-Carr still in IT Sligo?
She finished this summer, I believe. So that may be a negative, but who knows?
But even listen, there's players travelling from Donegal down, so it's not as if she can't carpool anyway.
Absolutely. Moving down the west coast, of course, from Sligo, we see Treaty United will be hosting Wexford at the weekend. It's very hard to see Edinburgh an away win in this one.
Breifne, their last 3 home games in the league have been Shelbourne, Peamount, and Wexford. Talk about a really, really bad stretch of games for Treaty United. We'd have to say Wexford should win comfortably.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one. Bows host Cork in Dalymount. Again, Cork struggling. They've lost 2 of their better performers in recent weeks, although we'd expect to see maybe Abby McCarthy come back into goals to replace Maria Sullivan. Abby's impressed me over the last year and a half, but does she have enough about her to kind of withstand that very impressive front line of Bows this season? Aoife Robinson, Erica Burke, and a couple of others chipping in with goals all over the place.
I can't see them holding up. I think Bows have started to get a bit of momentum. You look even, I know the Wexford lost, but they showed good character in that, especially when they went 1-0 down, and then against Shells, it was a good display. I'd have to say that Bows should pull the 3 points and be comfortable enough. They'll be looking to get that win back that they had in Turner's Cross, where they just didn't show up earlier in the season. Yeah,
and again, one that's given James O'Callaghan the sweats for the last 9 or 10 months is, of course, the visit of... I'm sorry, James. We'll give Galway are in town at Peamount. I'm pretty sure half of Peamount still have nightmares about that particular clash at the end of last season. What's your thoughts on this repeat encounter?
Don't forget, the start of the season, Peamount absolutely trashed them in Aim at DC Park, where they were 3 or 4-0 up at half time, and they looked at that stage that it was gone. The history of last year was gone, but just hasn't really worked out for Peamount this season. I think it'll be another difficult game for them. Galway will come into this with a good bit of form, and I think they'll fancy their chances against them. Like I've always said over the years, Galway seems to be better against the likes of Shells, Wexford, and Peamount when it's away from home compared to when they're playing in Aim at DC Park, where they seem to struggle a little bit against these sides.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's a strange one, because you see it with some other sides as well. They seem to perform better away from home against the big sides, and you'd like to think that Aim at DC Park, it's their fortune. It's where they get all the good results, but they never seem to do. And like you look at last year, they beat Wexford away last year, and they beat Peamount away. This year they had to draw with Shelbourne away. It's a strange one. It's hard to put a finger on, and you'd love to know, is it a mindset? Is it something? It's something that's just triggering them, that they just don't seem to perform as well against them at home.
Yeah, we'll have to get someone on from the club to have a chat about that maybe in the coming weeks. Final game, of course, for the eagle-eyed amongst you is not on the screen. At the bottom is, of course, the visit of DLR Waves to Athlone Town Stadium. We heard from Tommie Hewitt. He's happy with how his charges are going this season. He feels that he's kind of shutting some of the critics up a little bit. That's us included. Can they continue their fine run? Are DLR able to pull this back? Because DLR have probably had a relatively disappointing season against the expectations that they and others like ourselves might have had at the start of the year.
Most inconsistent team in the league. They haven't strung 2 wins together in the league since the opening 2 days of the season. You know, they go beat Shells, then they go and lose to Athlone, but now it looks like that Athlone loss wasn't a bad result after all with the run that Athlone went on. In terms of Athlone, I actually made a prediction in Talca Park last Saturday, just before kickoff, that they beat Shelbourne 1-0. So I was very close to it in the end, and they have no fear. I'd fancy Athlone to get a result in this game, as much as the DLOS people won't like me saying it, but I'd fancy Athlone to get a result and come away with the 3 points at home.
I think you'd have to, of course, still a big gap there at the top of the table from Shells to the Chasing Pack. But another round of games this weekend, and we shall see how that goes. The TG Car cameras are going to be down in Sligo for the visit of the champions. They're not quite within touch and distance of the championship just yet, but a couple of results could put them very, very close to that. Where will your eyes be this Saturday evening? Of course, all the games later on, no afternoon games this week. It's all 5, 6:30, 6:50 for the TV's cameras, and of course 7 o'clock. Where will your attention be? Will it be on the showgrounds?
To be honest with you, if I don't get the Bows and Cork, it'll be the 5 o'clock game on the box. Then it'll probably swap to the one on the 6 o'clock on the iPad and have one on the laptop, and then there's no doubt it's going to TG Car at 10 to 7. I love TG Car's coverage. My Irish isn't great, but I just love it in terms of all sports. So I'll be glued to that if I'm not at a game, if I'm not at Bows and Cork, and if I am, I'll just watch it. I'll watch it back. But just delighted to have them back and a good run of games coming up from them.
Yeah, if I can sneak out of work early, I might even make the trip down to Sligo myself. To whoever you're going to be, this goes out on Saturday morning, so it's this evening's games, of course, as you're watching this. Enjoy wherever you are going to be playing or watching a game today, and we'll be back with you again at the more traditional time of 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. Now that a certain show about romance on a deserted island has finished, we can go back and claim our 9 o'clock spot on a midweek evening. So hopefully we'll have guests and an audience at 9 o'clock next Wednesday evening. Aaron, a pleasure as always. Nice short show this week. No guests other than Tommie dropping in just to give us his thoughts on the game last week. And we'll be back with you again next week. Aaron, thanks very much for joining me again.
No problem.